What up, though, and welcome to the Living Noir Podcast. I'm your host, Delaney. I'm a serial entrepreneur residing on the south side of Chicago, and I'm currently on the journey to retire my 9-to-5 job and become my wildest manifestations. The Living Noir Podcast was created to share all of my wins, the lessons, not the losses, and everything in between. It's basically my journal. And my goal is to connect, empower, and inspire individuals to become their wildest positive manifestations by creating positive examples of determining self-worth, normalizing and advancing the conversation of mental health and generational wealth amongst the Black and Brown communities, and most importantly, creating and fueling our passions and hobbies to become foundations for our future success. So break bread with me as we all go on this journey together. And it all starts with taking the first step, and my step starts right now. All right, y'all, check this out. So, like I said, this is a cornerstone for me. This podcast is basically the foundation of my brand. This is who I am, right? So, I know in order for y'all to get comfortable with me, I got to get comfortable with y'all. So, that being said, if I stutter, if I miss something up or anything like that, just know that I'm just trying to get more comfortable with speaking on this microphone, making sure the audio sounds good, making sure that the topic relates. So I'm trying, just bear with me. I'm working on it, okay? It's the first episode, not the 100th episode. When the 100th episode hits, come back and listen to the first one and then realize how much I've changed since then. So anyway, this segment is story time. So this is the part where I want to tell about something that I learned or an experience that I had where I learned more about myself. In this situation, it was a time where I learned more about my own worth, my self-wealth, excuse me. But before I get into it, got another ad. This segment of the podcast is brought to you by Honey Hair Co. Make your hair dreams a sweet reality. Since 2017, Honey Hair Co. has provided exceptional products and services for more than 10,000 orders. Explore premium quality wigs, bundles, enclosures, and frontals in a wide variety of patterns. Shop today at one of their brick and mortar locations located in Chicago, Atlanta, and in St. Louis, Missouri. Or you can shop online and have it shipped anywhere in the U.S. Visit today at honeyhairco.com. Tell them Delaney sent you. No, seriously. Tell them I sent you. This isn't a paid ad. All right. So, story time. Like I said, self-worth. So, this is important. I want to give a little backstory. But I've been in the mortgage industry since about 2010. So, in this time, I've worked as a loan officer. I started out as a loan officer at Quicken Loans. Then from there, shortly after, I've moved around to different mortgage companies to either work as like I said, a loan officer, a loan processor, a loan closer, special assets processor. I've done various jobs, loan servicing. I've pretty much been on behind the scenes side of the loan industry for, like I said, about 10 years. And so for a kid like me who didn't go to college after high school, they threw those big numbers at me, saying, hey, kind of starting out at Quicken, you can make $60,000 in your first year, and of course I'm a 20 at this point. I moved to Detroit and I was living there for a few years, so I started working at Quicken in about 2010, so I was 20, and that's all I saw was the amount of money that you could make. And during that time I learned a lot. I learned a lot about the mortgage industry. You have to be licensed to be a loan officer, so you have to get a federal license test. Then you have to be licensed per state at that time. You have to study for each state. It was a big test. So, it was a huge process, and the money definitely was there, but it was always the environment for me. I appreciated learning all of the information, and this is over at any position that I've worked at. I've always wanted to be in real estate. I kind of knew that innately growing up, just having something of my own to call my own, basically. But just the salesy environment or the toxic atmosphere, I just really, it becomes to where it's a race to just do the same monotonous thing over and over and over. Anyway, I digress. That'll be a story for another day. So what I'm saying is that at this particular time, I was working for a mortgage company in downtown Chicago. I've been there for about 5 years at this point. And during my time there, I slowly but surely became like one of the strongest employees at the company. I was versatile. I was able to take on a lot of projects. I was able to show that I was dependable. I completed presentations in front of like C-level employees, the president, the owner of the company. And a lot of these opportunities came my way because of my direct supervisor who I was working under. Now, this is still, he's one of my closest friends to this day, and I appreciate him for a lot of the information that he gave me. He put me in front of those groups. He showed me how to put together a deck presentation. He showed me how to make sure that my email etiquette is on point, or how I present myself into investors and things like that. He was there to help shape me because he saw the potential. I will never forget that, and I will always appreciate that. Shout out to you. You know who you are. Anyway, going back into all of that, by me gaining all of these different skills over this time frame, I became, like I said, a really strong employee over that time. Now, once was I promoted? Okay, let me just make this clear. This isn't anything about me not being promoted or being looked over. It's not really what I wanted to bring backstory to. It was just more of, at the time, I knew that I had skills, but I really wasn't focused on doing anything with those at that point. But I knew, like, hey, I'm pretty good at this, So what I was focused on, of course, was making money, and we were a base plus salary commission job. I'm sorry, base plus commission job. So every month, we had a compensation plan where we were paid a certain amount per file that we closed. And of course, me and my coworkers on our team, whenever we saw that the new compensation plan would come out, we would always, reverse engineer it to work to make sure that we made our processing files, or whatever we were doing, or how we were trying to get the job done, to crack that compensation plan to make the most out of it. And normally we did. We were pretty good at what we were doing on our team. But then there would be time and time again where you would have a period, or maybe after a year or the first or second quarter, we'll have revised compensation plans where they come out, and the instructions are basically where it's pretty much summing it up to where it's like, hey, do double the work, we'll pay you pretty much the same. So it was kind of just, it became more irritating after a while. Now, like I said, during this time in the company, I'm coming up, I'm learning about it, and now this period in my life, I'm engaged. We're engaged to be married probably in about 8 to 10 months. So it's around the corner, and the deposits are coming. We got to pay for the venue, we got to pay for the catering, which is usually the two top things when it comes to getting married. So, and the money at work is starting to dry up because the compensation plan is getting revised, and it's laid on certain things. We're not getting paid as much as we were before. So it's kind of like, it was getting tough. It was getting to the point to where I was only mainly able to cover like my end of the household bills. I was pretty much only able to do that. I was like scraping it. There were actually days where I couldn't even afford to take the CTA or take the train into work in order for me to be able to go to work. I couldn't afford to take public transportation into work because I couldn't afford the fare. Like, that's That's wild. I literally there were days where it was like I could not afford 225 just to make it into work. And it was just like, what am I actually doing here? I started to reevaluate a lot of things. I was frustrated. I was angry. I was mad. I was like, what is going on? Why am I putting out so much and getting so little in return? Like, why is all of these things happening at this, like, what's going on? I'm trying to do what I can in order to produce, but like, I'm not getting compensated for it. So it was a dark period. And, a lot of things were going on during that time. But it's getting to the end of the year, and every year our company would hold a holiday party, of course, just like in usually other companies where everybody gets around and the company rents out a hall or a event space, and there's an open bar, and everybody's going and they're getting wasted, and the company uses that time to announce like the top performances of the year. They go on to just talk about like how the company has performed for the year, what the aspirations are for the upcoming year, shit like that. So um every year, like I said, when they do these parties, they want to also make sure that they have some sort of enticement to have their employees show up. So they would always do this little thing where we would get a holiday bonus every year, but they would give you $100 in cash, but you had to show up, of course, to get it. So the $100, of course, was part of the actual holiday bonus, but they gave it to you in cash to basically say like, hey, look, there's an open bar here. If you are going to drink, make sure that you use this money as transportation. So they can be like, hey, look, hey, we gave them money. You know what I mean? So they should have found a responsible way of getting home instead of driving at this public bar, at this open bar event. So, they try to do little shit like that, whatever. But anyway, I had this, I had already made up my mind that I wasn't going to go to the party because I wasn't in that space where I wanted to even be a part of the company anymore. I was already looking for new jobs. I was going to networking events for, different real estate ventures, I should say. But, I was using this time to really focus on what I want to do, because it just felt I was getting to a point to where I was putting out, production week after week, month after month. And it wasn't, I was putting in a lot of work for other people and wasn't getting any benefit out of it. So I started to take more stock into what I wanted and what I desired. So like I said, I was networking, I was going to real estate events. I was just really detaching myself from the current job. So it had gotten to, like I said, the point to where I actually, the environment at work was getting to the point where you would see that there would be like upper management people who have been with the company for decades, right? They've been there for a long time, and they start leaving because they didn't want to be in that atmosphere anymore. And then you start to look at it, it's like, yo, like these people have been here for like 8 years, 10 years, 12 years, things like that. They're up and leaving. It's time to make a move, right? So it gets to the day of the party, it gets to the day of the party, and I'm working, and I'm sitting next to my direct supervisor, I mentioned previously, and we're talking, and he's like, hey, you may want to show up tonight. You may be surprised on how it turned out. And I'm like, nah, I'm good. I'm like, my time could be better spent. I could be spending time with my fiance. We can go out to dinner. We can just chill. And usually, like, it's in the dead of the winter anyway, like these holiday parties. In the last couple of years, it's like a snowstorm, and then you have to figure out how you're going to get there. I'm like, nah, I'm not going. I don't even want to have to worry about it, whatever. So it gets to the night of the party. I'm at home. I'm chilling. Me and wifey just chilling, just doing whatever. And my phone starts blowing up. You know what I mean? I think I was like watching a movie too or something like that. And my phone just starts blowing up. I'm getting texts and phone calls. It's like, congratulations, man. You did it, man. You did it. And I'm like, I did what? Like, what are you talking about? And like, man, you're the account manager of the year, man. Now, mind you, this company is based out of Chicago, but there are different offices. They have an office. They have a couple offices in Illinois. I think like 2 other offices. So it's 3 in Illinois. There's 2 in Florida, and there's 2 in Texas. So there's a lot of different bases. And I had won account manager of the year, which is basically the top performer amongst the company, right? Kind of self-explanatory. So I was like, I'm reading the text messages, and I'm like, that's cool, thanks, I guess. And I just kind of, set my phone down and went about my night, it didn't really mean that much to me because I knew that it came from a sense of false empathy. You know what I mean? It was kind of an arbitrary thing for the company to kind of put out there, So I was just kind of like, whatever. And I just went on with my night. So then the following Monday comes and I get back to work. And it felt like one of those moments where like you see in the movies where like the main character's like walking into a room, and as they're walking down the hall, you got people coming towards you on your left and your right, and they're congratulating you. They're like, hey, Delaney, congratulations, blah, 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 blah. Man, you know what I mean? We really, like you really spoke for us and all that other stuff and blah, 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 blah by not showing up. And I'm like, what? But my coworkers were more excited for me that I won, but they were also excited because I didn't even bother to show up to the event to get the highest award, and it was like they felt like they were more hyped about the fact that I wasn't there than anything, because it showed the company and it showed the executives there that the morale is terrible. You know what I mean? Like my coworkers, they felt seen at that moment. They felt, I felt like they did, they felt the same way. We weren't getting our value. We weren't being recognized, and so it gotten, like I said before, it gotten to the point to where like people who had been with the company for like over, close to 10 years and plus they were leaving because they just couldn't deal anymore. So shortly after the party, a couple weeks later, I ended up securing a job offer from another company that a few people from my job had actually left and went to. So my plan was basically I wanted to take this gig because they were offering a higher base, but this was basically just going to be a stepping stone for me because I'm still going to be out here networking and getting into the real estate base because I want to focus more on what I want for me. So that's always been the focus. And I figure if I'm going to be doing this, of course I need to make more money doing, while I'm paying my 9 to 5 or working my 9 to 5. So I put in my 2 weeks. Put in my 2 weeks at work. And the first week it was normal. It wasn't anything. I didn't really hear anything from anybody outside of like my coworkers. Of course, they're asking, where you're going. I never said where I was going. Never told anybody where I was going. Right? So, like I said, first week was fine. Then Monday of the following week, which is my last week of work, and I get to work like a normal, normal work day. And shortly after, I get a phone call on my work phone from the president of the company. Now, mind you, I've never really had any direct contact with the president of the company. Like I said before, I had done projects and presented in front of him. We've had conversations. They're usually in group settings, things like that. Never anything one-on-one or not even. It's so weird because it's like not even those small interactions when you run into somebody going to the bathroom or you see, you know what I mean? It wasn't even that. Like, if anything, it was one of those things where normally, like, you speak to somebody, you would have to speak to them in order for them to speak to you. It's weird, you know what I'm saying? But like I said, I didn't have a lot of contact with him outside of those situations. So he calls me, right? And he's like, hey, can you come down to my office? Let's have a little chat. And I'm like, what does white man want from me? So I go down to his office, and just to like kind of let him know that he's really out of touch, I was like, hey man, this is a really nice office. I don't think I've ever been down here in the time that I've actually worked here. He said, oh really? Oh man, you should stop by more often. You can always come down. I have an open door policy. Right. So then I go on in the conversation. I say, well, how can I help you? What's going on? So then he starts the conversation off with, I heard you're leaving and you're going to such and such. I hadn't told anybody where I was going. I just wanted to let you know, you're probably not going to make as much money over there. You're going into a dead field. It's a dead technology. They're this, they're that. You won't be able to make money, blah, blah, blah. I know what's best for you, blah, 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 da, 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 da. Okay, maybe not the last part, but you get the vibes. This white man was thinking that he could tell me what's best for me based off of what he thinks is best for me, right? So he's going on and on and on, and I stopped him. I had to stop him mid-sentence, and I said, hold on now, player. I said, now just give me, now, I'm not sure if you are in a space or even have the authority to speak on this situation that doesn't directly involve you. It doesn't involve you at all. So I'd appreciate it if you didn't speak on that. Again, that has nothing to do with you. But if you and I want to have a conversation about my tenure here, a recap of anything, any questions about anything here, you and I can have a conversation about that. But I don't think that is something that you need to be speaking on if it doesn't have anything to do with you. And it kind of took him back a little bit, and then he starts to backpedal. Oh, no. It's not that at all. It's not that at all. I'm sorry, I just wanted to get some more feedback from you, it's, you've been here for a long time. You're account manager of the year. We really value you. It's just, is there anything else that we could have done to, kind of help, make anything better or anything? And so I'm like, I couldn't really remember everything that I said to him, but I do remember telling him that, like, well, I think the biggest thing is, that your employees can see the false sense of empathy that upper management has. And at this point, it's very disrespectful to the people that come in here to work every day. Every time there is a compensation plan that's adjusted, it's always in favor of the company to make more money, but it takes away money from the employees. And it's, you can spin it a certain way. You can make it sound as if you want it, it's empowering us and encouraging us, and it is what it is. But I just, I just want you to know that we're not flying for it. It's not cool. The employees are very frustrated. You can tell from the morale in here. That's why you have a lot of these people leaving. And mind you, as I'm saying these things, he's looking at me as if like he's not aware. And the thing about it is that like behind the scenes, you have a huge company, right? Like, what's going on. Or if you don't know, you're choosing to be ignorant. But you know what's going on. So I basically continue to just say that like it just comes off as if like you guys plan these things, but then you act as if you want to listen, but you're not listening. And it comes off to be very tone deaf, and it comes off to be very artificial. So that's basically it. And then he stopped and he said, I appreciate you sharing that, and honestly, I'm not gonna lie, the tone deaf comment kind of hurt there. And I said, well, if you're hurt by the comment, then you gotta imagine how the employees must feel. You know what I mean? So we kept going back and forth a little bit, talking a little bit more. There wasn't really much else to say. So we wrapped up the conversation, and then he was like, of course, well, if you need anything or if I can be a reference to you, you can reach out to me. Here's my card, blah, blah, blah. And then I thanked them and then I went back to work. Now, I mean, I can't say for certain that conversation created some shockwaves, but I mean, a few days later, right? Thursday, to be exact. So it's the day before my last day of work. I come into work again. I start working like normal. And I look at my work phone. And it's a phone call from the owner of the company. And I'm like, oh my God. Okay. All right. I answer the phone. He says, hey, can you come down to my office? Let's have another chat. I'm like, oh shit. Here we go again. So then I go down to his office, right? And then we start talking. And I swear to you, like, it was pretty much verbatim to what the president was saying or how he started off the conversation. And it was like, Lawrence, you're not going to make as much money down there. Blah, blah, blah. It's a dead technology, like literally verbatim repeating the same things that the president said. And I'm like, is this like corporate America employee retention 101? So I had to stop him as well and say the same thing. Like, look, if we want to have this conversation, then let's talk about what's going on here, right? Like, don't speak on anything that doesn't involve you or doesn't have anything to do with you because you're not bringing anything to that conversation. Talk about what you can do and what you can do for me if this is what the conversation we're going to have. And he's like, yeah, I respect that. I understand. They get real timid, right? When you show that, like, you can look at a person and you see them as a human and you don't see them for their title, and you start speaking in that's real, man. Like, address people like they're human, bro. Like, I'm telling you, like, it doesn't matter. You can walk into any room and just treat people as a human. It doesn't cost to do that. That's normal. So, like I said to him, I was like, look, we can talk about what we need to talk about my tenure here or whatever you want to do. And he was like, yeah, that's fine. Let's continue to do that. And he's like, I can't have my best employee leave. He's like, he goes on to say, like, I keep a list of employees that have been vocal about moving up in the company. And then I also have a list for employees that I think that are a good fit but haven't been vocal about it. And he's kind of alluding to the second list and how I'm on that list because I haven't really been vocal about it. So then I stopped him again. And I'm like, well, with all due respect, I find that really difficult to believe when I've been called to work on special projects throughout my tenure here. I've worked on projects that are reported directly to you or directly under you. I've been appointed by different groups in the company to recommend me for, like managerial reports to send out, things like that. Like, all of this stuff was rolling up to you. So for you to say that I'm not even I'm on the list of where I've been vocal about it, I think my work shows for itself, right? Like, I've been doing that already. And then he goes on to say, well, I had my mind on I wanted you to head up this new department that I'm starting up, and you'll be working closely with another manager that works here, and based on your skill set and knowledge, I just figured that you would be the best fit for that. And so then I say to him, and I'm like, this is interesting because this has to be more of a coincidence that this is coming to me 2 days before my last day of work. And he's like, I mean, I've been traveling, and I just found out about this recently. So I wanted to make sure that I got in front of you and talk to you about it. And I'm like, okay, whatever. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's cap. Like, you continuously cap, and you really think that I'm like oblivious to this, which is wild. So I'm playing the game, right? And I said, and I'm like, even though I knew in my head, I'm like, I'm not going to do this because this doesn't really have anything that I want to do, right? I'm like, whatever. I told him, I said, look, I'll think about it. Okay? I'll think about it. We can talk about it tomorrow. And at that moment, when I told him that, I felt like when I left his office, I felt that leverage. Because that's what I created at this point, was a sense of leverage, right? It's, you're talking to me as if like I don't know that it's gonna be a bad look when the account manager of the year has put in his 2 weeks and has left the company. You know what I mean? After you put on this whole entire thing to provide me with this award. There's quotation marks there, by the way. Anyway, so come back the next day, right? I go back down to his office and he's excited to see me. He's like, oh, hey, look. He starts talking about it. You can see how geeked he is. And he goes on for about 10 minutes. He's writing on his whiteboard and he's like, see, this is what I want you to do. And I want you to work with this guy here. And you have a very strong skill set in doing this, and this, and this customer service and blah, blah, blah. We think that we're going to get this much return back and it's going to help you and blah, 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 and all this other stuff. And I just let him go. I just let him talk because he was in the zone. I mean, like, it looked like one of those Einstein equations he was writing on the board. And I just let him go, right? And I'm just still, like, just sitting in my head. And I'm like, yo, what are you talking about, So I come back in towards the end of the conversation. He's like, well, yeah, if you go, you come in at this position, I'll make you a manager and I'll pay you a base of $75,000. Do what now? So, when he said that, I sat there and I'm still in my head. I'm like, yo, I'm saying to myself, okay, the base definitely helps because that was more than what I was being offered at the new job, right? But it wasn't just about the money. I mean, the money was the reason why I had to leave, right? But the money on top of being in that atmosphere wasn't worth it. So you could have gave me $120,000. If I was still going to be in the same position that I was, then what's the point, right? And there's no benefit for me. I'm not benefiting from this. I'm just doing more work for you at a higher salary, and it doesn't work for me. I'm in a new space where I want something that works for me. So I let him finish, and then I politely declined. And I told him, I said, I appreciate you providing me with this offer, but right now it's not really lining up with what I want to do for me. And then he says, well, what do you want to do? And I said, do what now? I said it again. No, I'm not going to lie. It caught me off guard a little bit, but he asked me, well, what is it that I want to do? And I wasn't prepared for that. So I took a second and I'm like, well, I'm at a space where I'm looking at getting into the real estate market of, for my own personal benefit of acquiring properties and renovating properties. So buying them up, fixing them up, flipping them and selling them. And then holding long-term rentals as well, working on that and being a part, that's the next journey for me. That's where I want to be. And so then he says, well, and it was very matter-of-factly. He was like, well, why don't you just come work for me on the company that I have that does lending for fix and flips and rental properties? And I'm like, I didn't even know that was a thing. And coincidentally, earlier that week, he was in charge of unrolling, he had several different subsidiary companies that he was launching that week. And one of these was a commercial lending company that provides lending for investors who want to do fix and flip renovations for investment properties and also long-term rental holds. So if you're looking to buy a place for just an investment property just to rent, then you would you can use this platform and you can get this lending. So he was like, I'll get you to work. I'll get you over there so that way you can do that. I'll still pay you the 75,000, and you can work on what you want to work on. I just can't lose my best employee. So now I'm like, shit, damn, this white man actually kind of making some sense now. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, my antennas are kind of moving around a little bit because I'm listening now. I'm intrigued, right? Because if anything, it's checking some boxes. It's starting to, right? The money that I was looking for, right? Me being able to get into a field where I can network and get with other investors to build that portfolio of people to rely on, or to just get into that space of understanding fix and flips and buying investment properties, just exposing myself. And I mean, I don't have to get another job, but like I said, I the base is there. So if anything, I'm thinking in my head at this point, the worst case scenario that happens is that I go over there with everything that I had been looking for. I go over there and I gain some experience, but at the end of the day, it's what I had been looking for from the start. So to me, in my head, it actually makes more sense to me. But something was still off. Something I wasn't too sure about. It was still off. And I'm thinking in my head, and I'm just still like, Then it hit me. I gotta pay for this wedding. You gotta pay for this wedding. This wedding is in like 4 or 5 months, bro. And the way that it's looking pretty bleak. So how you gonna pay for this wedding? So I'm in my head having this conversation, and the owner is still on the other side of the table looking at me. And I'm thinking, and I'm like, okay, you might as well go for it, right? You don't have anything else to lose. So I say to him, I said, I appreciate this offer. I also am paying for a wedding. I'm getting ready to be married in August, and I need to make sure that I have the financial ability to pay for this wedding. So I want to see if you are able. No, I didn't say I want to see. So I said that I need $10,000 in order for me to make sure that this wedding goes off and is secured and paid for. And then he said, how much do you owe on it? Or how much do you need is what he said. How much do you need? I said 10,000. And he sat there and he did this the little look or whatever, right? So then he says, if you are here, meaning that if you are still here August 1st, then I will pay you a $10,000 retention bonus or whatever. The wedding was August 17th. So when he said that, I'm like, okay, let me think about it, and then I will let you know before the weekend is over. And he's like, well, I'm traveling this weekend, but here's my cell phone number. You can shoot me a text or give me a call. We can talk about it over the weekend or whatever. And so I left his office, and to me I was still going according to plan, right? Because at this time it was Friday. So it's towards the end of the day. I'm going about it as if it was my last day of work. It was funny because I had my exit interview. Of course, my coworkers was like, man, we gotta, have a drink or whatever. Let me buy you a drink because you're getting ready to go, all this other stuff. Of course, I obliged. So we went to our local watering hole, which is right next door to the job. And, I'm saying goodbye, having a good time, blah, blah, blah. In the back of my mind, I'm still thinking like, the owner just offered me, you know what I'm saying? Like this crazy deal. So, from there, we get to, I'm talking to my wife and we're discussing it, and I'm like, yo, like this man said he wanted to do $75. He's going to give me this position. It's going to get me in the field working with, fix and flips and things like that, which is what I'm looking for. And then he also said he's going to give us 10 grand, right? She like, well, do it. You know what I mean? Like, go ahead and, it makes sense. But she was like, the thing about it is you're going to need that money before the first. Like, we got deposits and everything we got to make. So I was like, yeah, you're right. She said, why don't you see if he'll do half now and then half then? I said, that's a good idea. So by this time, it's Saturday morning, and I shoot him a text because he said he was traveling, so I didn't know where he was or whatever, right? So I shot him a text. I said, hey, look, thinking about the offer. I just wanted to get some clarification. Can you let me know if you got time to speak? As soon as I press send, he calls me immediately. I'm like, yo, this white man is not playing, right? So we're talking, and I'm like, yo, the offer sounds good. I just need to confirm if you can do, instead of doing 10 grand on the 1st of August, can you split it? Can we do half now and then half on the 1st of August? Because I got deposits that I need to take care of. He starts going into, well, I mainly did that because I've done this in the past, and I've been burnt before, and you don't seem as if you're going to be somebody who's going to burn me, so I'll be able to do it and extend this to you, blah, 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 blah. I said, cool. I'll get back to you. I'll call you back. Now, at this point, I mean, we had everything that we needed, but I just needed to, look, when you get into these spaces, you have to be firm about what you want and what you need. You know what I mean? You have to make sure your voice is heard. And I think that that's what I was doing at that point, was just saying, hey, look, I'm not just going to bend to whatever you say, whatever it is. If this is what I'm going to agree to, let me think about it. Hang up with him. Called him back probably about an hour or two later, and then told him that I accepted it. And then I was like, well, how we going to get everything? They deactivated me on Friday because I don't work there anymore. And he was like, man, don't worry about that. And he put me on an email chain with HR and everything, and said, turn all his stuff back on. He'll be back on Monday. And that's how it went. You know what I mean? It was a wild play. I was able to shortly after that transfer over into the commercial lending spot, where I gained a lot of information, made some connections with some investors, got familiar with that atmosphere of just doing lending for non-consumer lending. So I'll be able to kind of go into that. I'll touch into that more as we go along. But what a play, right? That's wild. But it wasn't until after the negotiations that I actually had a moment to reflect on what happened. I had the owner and the president of a pretty decent sized company that manages about over 500 to 1,000 employees, somewhere around there. And they were playing prevent defense just to keep me as an employee there. 2 older, wealthy white men. Okay? 2. And I'm over here holding my own, and I'm letting them know that, look, I'm not here for that bull. I don't care who or what you think you are or what position you have. I'm the type of person, like I said before, I don't tolerate disrespect towards another human. Period, point blank. It is what it is. I'm going to address you how I would address the janitor, and vice versa. It really does not matter. We should all be treated with the same amount of respect, and I'm not going to stand for anything less. But the important thing was knowing that you're an individual and you're worthy of being respected. That was important for me to come to that understanding. If I didn't have that self-awareness, the owner could have said anything and I would have just agreed to it, because I've been doing what's best for him and what's best for the company, and I would have continued to neglect my own self-worth and what I wanted to do. I would have been able to push that further back to fulfill somebody else's dream. You know what I mean? That's not what we're here for. We're not here for that, So recognizing my own work ethic and abilities way before the company told me about it. But you got to realize your worth. None of that is possible unless you truly understand that you are worthy. You are the master of your universe, right? And God didn't put you here to be involved with anything that you can't handle, right? He didn't put you in situations that you can't handle. Even though you may think that you're not capable, you're not able, you're not worthy, you're not all of these things, you are here for a reason. You have to know that. You have to understand that. That's the first step in the way that you transform your life, you know? So, again, I hope that I was able to, with this story, at least get you to relate. You know, everyone has that boss that is, you know, always a little bit more demanding, never really showing you your worth, or is just taking advantage of your work ethic. And a lot of times the recognition doesn't come, right? And we, like I said, we're all humans. Sometimes we want that. We want to know that we are wanted. We want to know that we do hold value. Sometimes it doesn't always come. So we can't just wait for someone else to give us our assessment of our value. We have to create that assessment for ourselves. So know your worth. And I really hope that this story at least resonates in some way that gives you a little bit more inspiration to become the best version of yourself. So that about wraps up my first podcast episode. I can't believe it, I just said that, but that wraps up my first podcast episode. I really hope that you enjoyed it. I apologize in advance for how raw it sounds and raw it seems. Like I said, this isn't episode 100. This is episode 1. When I get to 100, please make sure you come back to this episode, listen to it, leave comments, and let me know how different or how it sounds. Because I'm excited when I get to that point. I'm thinking I'm going to do it when I hit 100 episodes. I'll come back and I'll listen to it as well. But other than that, like I said, man, just continue to be kind to yourself, right? And before I sign off, there's a couple things that I wanted to do. First, I wanted to, sorry if you hear that noise, I got people working in the back. It looks like the electric company that just, my power had been out for a while, and it just came back on, and they've been working on this stuff for a couple of hours now. So if you hear anything in the background, I apologize again in advance for that. But each week I want to leave you with a book or an audiobook that I recommend for the week that I have been listening to. I find that now in my older age, 31, of course, I listen to more mediums like podcast mediums, or I'll find a book that I'll listen to in the morning while I'm in the shower. And it kind of helps me with my day. It kind of helps me get in that mindset of being productive, of being, of just, getting in that good space of doing something positive, right? So, like I said, for this week, I want to recommend one of the first audiobooks that I actually purchased because of just my intrigue with the way that this gentleman's life is going, the way that we've been able to all watch him transform himself and reinvent himself over maybe about a decade and a half now. But the book is Black Privilege. Opportunities Come to Those Who Create It by Leonard, Charlamagne, the God McKelvey. Anyway, Charlamagne's book, right? His first book. So I chose it because in it, I chose the book because in it, Charlamagne talks about how his humble beginnings from Moncks Corner, South Carolina, got him to become one of the greatest radio personalities of our generation. He discusses his battles with uncertainty with himself, his lack of self-worth, unhealthy habits. So he kind of, just gives you, more of his backstory. It's basically about his background. And in it, I found that I could relate a lot to him because there are, just things on a human level that, we all deal with. We don't feel like we're worthy. we don't feel as if like we have the skills. We don't feel as if like we think that we can compete. We stifle ourselves before anybody else can stifle us, right? We shouldn't do that. Or let me not say we shouldn't do that, because we do it. However, we can't let that hinder us from being our best selves. So, again, Black Privilege, Opportunities Come to Those Who Create It, by Leonard, Charlamagne the God, McKelvey, right? Check out the audiobook. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think about it. Start up some dialogue. Let me know what you thought about the podcast. If you are listening to it on Apple or Spotify, make sure you download and get notified. Subscribe to this podcast so you are notified of any further podcasts that are coming from me. And again, from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you very much for giving me your time and listening to this. Thank you for listening to the Living Noir Podcast. Show your support, like I said, by downloading the podcast and telling just one friend about it. That support goes a long way. Make sure you follow me on Instagram at Living Noir. That's LIVINGN0IR. And then subscribe to the podcast. And as always, I'm Delaney. And remember to continue to strive to become your manifestations and keep moving forward. Peace.